Welcome to You Matter in Business. Your hosts today are Ariel, me, and Miriam.
Your heart, your brand story, and your success because you matter in your business.
Welcome to You Matter in Business. And joining me again today is my co-host, and that's Ariel Faith. Hi, Ariel. How are you today?
I am doing good, Miriam.
Awesome. Good. Ariel, what is it? This afternoon? Well, whenever you're listening to it, we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence. So let me just give you a kind of overview of what emotional intelligence is. There's been over the years a vast amount written about emotional intelligence, and it's a really fascinating subject. So we're not going to cover it all this afternoon, because you could do an entire degree on emotional intelligence, but I find it absolutely fascinating. So we can just scrape the surface today and see whether we can give our listeners a kind of idea of how emotional intelligence can be really important to them. So emotional intelligence it's broken up into four different elements of us. So emotional intelligence is not IQ. So IQ is the kind of intelligence that you're born with, the kind of you can test for it and see how clever you are, and that kind of things, and it's fairly well set. Emotional intelligence you can actually develop over time, and it's broken down into four sections, which is self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. So those are the kind of four elements that we're going to be chatting about today. So Ariel, I know you're incredibly emotionally intelligent. And so what kind of give us an idea of how emotional intelligence can affect us as businesswomen, and how we can embrace that emotional intelligence to enhance our business.
I, Especially if you're in any kind of leadership, emotional intelligence is almost critical.
Yeah.
Because you have to be able to see in yourself, see outside, work with staff, work with the team, see the good and the bad and the weakness. You have to see all that stuff when you're working with people. So being intelligent in that respect means you see it, you're aware of it. You're aware of why somebody is one way, or you're willing to bring in the tests to help your whole team understand each other. Because there's a lot of personality differences and all of that stuff is fascinating, but it all has a good basis for business.
Yeah.
And every team member that has a strength makes the team stronger.
Yeah.
Even if the strength is different. So that's what you learn to look for in other people when you have a high level of intelligence. Or if you are a speaker and you're talking to the audience, you realize you have all different levels of humans sitting in that audience. So if you talk at a level, if you're a doctor and you're talking about all this Latin stuff and it's a general population that's in the audience, you lost them.
Yeah.
Right. So an emotionally intelligent person will take that high level information and present it with illustrations of things that not that they're not highly intelligent, but they just don't have the knowledge. You'll present it in a way that they can get the concept and be intrigued and want to learn more.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of so know your room, know your audience, be able to so know your audience and read the room, and that's really important when that's the kind of hub of emotional intelligence, is to be able to recognize that everybody every single day of their life has things that affect the way that they're going to behave. So it might be that you wake up in the morning, you have an argument with your other half, you can't get the kids in the car to get them to go to school or to eat their breakfast. And so you're in a heightened sense of stress, and that is going to affect the way that or maybe the opposite. You've been able to get up in the morning, you've been able to go for a run, you've had a really healthy breakfast, your hair's looking the way that you want it to look, and
It behaved.
yeah, the clothes that you're wearing, you sorted them out the night before, you're really relaxed. That's good. So you're going to behave in a certain way, but also not only is it the things that has affected you that morning, but also your history, the things that you've coped with in the past, there's trauma that you may have suffered, or those kind of past experiences. That's going to affect the way you behave as well. So you walk into a room with all that baggage. But the most difficult thing is that not only do you have that baggage, not only have you had those experiences, but every other person in the room that you're walking into has also got baggage that they're bringing in with them. And it might change from day to day. So you may well have somebody that you've dealt with yesterday and they were able to go for a run. They were really relaxed. But then they come into work today and everything went wrong. Everything went wrong. The tap was leaking and the car didn't start, and
Dog
all
food on the carpet.
Yeah, that's nice. All those things. And suddenly you've got to react differently to that person. They're a different person than they were the day before. But so you've got to be able to read that room. And so the first thing is knowing how you're going to react, but then also being able to pivot, to be able to be agile, to be able to work out that, wow, okay, I've got a different person that I'm dealing with today. How am I going to get the best out of them? So that's really, I find it completely fascinating. It's total psychology, isn't it? It's total.
I think some people are naturally intuitive, and babies are very intuitive. They can tell if a parent likes a person. They're natural. I think the more we learn to talk, the less we lose some of those skills. We learn to listen to those things that are happening without the words. But some people, I think, keep those skills. They become they can sense if somebody's in a bad mood, even if they're smiling or pretending. They can just feel it. So I think some people are sensitive to that. That makes it easier for them to read the room. Mm-hmm. Other people can be taught to read the room. And I think this is an interesting byproduct. I was talking to 3 different people, and they all experienced a very similar horrific trauma as a child. But part of that trauma made them very hypervigilant. It's a side effect of severe emotional trauma. Okay. So they're hypervigilant, which means they are paying attention to everything that's happening in that room. It tends to stress them out. Because it uses energy, like we talked about last week. So it can be a bad thing if you don't learn how to learn how to use that skill, because it's also a skill.
Yeah.
Because you feel what's happening, because you had to pay attention. You had to know whether it was going to be a good night or a bad night. You had to know whether you needed to hide under your bed. You had to know those things. But that skill you learned in sensing the way the door opened, you knew, whoever every situation is different, but though you become hypersensitive to all those things, but it gives you kind of a superpower when you're older.
Yeah.
Because now you don't react to those things, but you see them, you hear them, you notice them. And that gives you a kind of an edge. But I think I read recently, don't remember where it was. I think it might have been Nicole Smith, F. Smith. But she made this comment that 3%, and don't quote me on this, but I think it was 3% of the population is self-aware, which was incredibly low from my perspective. I was like, what in the world? If you're not self-aware, what are you? So I was like, we have to improve that by talking about these things. We have to improve that by educating people. We have to improve the number of people who will stop and be introspective.
Yeah. And that's really important, isn't it? And the power of the pause, or that I always do say to my clients, just take time to take a breath. But that kind of self-awareness of knowing how something is going to trigger you, or what, how you're going to react to something. And then when it happens, go, okay, we all react far too quickly to things, and that learning that you can just take a breath, that you can just step back. Don't just don't just react to that email that you've just got, that's and just fire off another email back. Just take a pause, just take a breath, and react to it differently. Don't just argue back at something because somebody's just said something that's just completely triggered you. Take a breath and just, okay, I'm going to think about that for a second, and I'm going to consider how I'm going to react to that, and think about maybe why that person has said what they've said in the way that they've said it, because that they may have had something that's triggered them. But
And this is where a lot of people are using the word grace nowadays, but I would say mercy or compassion or some other words. They're all pretty similar, but when we're compassionate with ourselves, we understand that some days, the days are going to be different. Some days I'm going to have more energy to deal with stupidity, right? And some days I don't have the energy to deal with stupidity. So both of those are okay because they just are.
Yeah.
So if I don't have the energy, I'm not going to react to that email at all today.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait until I have the energy, because then I'll make a better decision. So
and that's okay. It's okay. It's okay to respond.
Exactly. It is just okay. Get over it. No. Okay. Anything else we got?
So how do we help others to or guide others to manage their own emotional triggers? So a lot of it is about that pausing, isn't it? And it's that self-awareness. But also, so what about how we can use our own emotional intelligence to manage social situations? Can you think of a situation where you've done that, where you've read a room?
Yes. And I think sometimes the best way is to lead by example.
Okay, good.
Sometimes the lessons are silent. So there might be somebody who's reacting poorly to a situation, and then you, by example, show them a alternative reaction. You have to do that multiple times. But often when they now see a different path, they now have an ability to adjust. Sometimes you need to just sit down and have a conversation with someone, in reality, and find out what's going on and see if you can help. But sometimes, especially as a coach, you have the ability to enter those conversations. But in the workforce, I'm thinking sometimes the greatest thing you can do is lead by good example. So if you are leading on any level of business, your example is pivotal to developing a teamwork that works really effectively.
Yeah. And as leaders, we don't have we're not able to, we don't have we're not allowed, if you like, I can't think of the right word, to walk into a room in a bad mood, or walk into a room full of people that we're leading, or that we're managing. If you walk into a room and you are stressed and angry and annoyed and all the rest of it, that's how they're going to react back to you, because they're going to follow you by an example. People that we lead, it ends up like a mirror. So if you have to just rise above it and walk into a room and act the way that you want people to react back at you, because they're going to react to you, your emotions, your stress, your angst, all those kind of stuff. And that's really hard, because that might not be how you woke up that morning. That might not be the way that you feel, but you've got to allow yourself to walk into that room and be perfect, because you're leading people. And leading by example, exactly as you said.
I don't know that you have to be perfect. And I'm going to give you an example. This is
Okay,
many,
good.
many years ago, but I was hired to do what's called a charrette in the architectural world. So it's when you get a group of highly skilled people together to kick out massive amounts of plans and massive amounts of ideas for a whole community. So you're doing this just quite literally in a week's time. So in the crazy hour days, they might be 12, there might be nonstop nights. It's like a really intensive work week for a week. And I remember I had it on the books. You get paid extremely well for that week, but so it's worth all the crazy hours. Um, but I remember it was scheduled on the books. I can't change the charrette. It's happening. And the week before, my husband left. He left me with a
Wow.
1-year-old child. So needless to say, I was a mess on the inside. But my ability, and this came from a book I read literally when I was in my teens, that compartmentalizing things like that, I can literally, in my mind, because I'm super visual, if you haven't figured that out, I will literally take those problems, put them in suitcase,
Mm-hmm.
put it in my car, and I will leave it in the car and I'll shut the door and I will go to work.
Wow.
I will pick that
That's a
suitcase up
skill.
on the way home because I have no choice. But right now, I don't need that in this room because I have a job to do. And it also helps when you have children to feed.
Mm.
I really do think when you're a mom and you're put in those situations and you're now the single mom, you do a ton because you have no choice, because you are leading children. You
Mm-hmm.
are setting an example, but you also are the only way they're going to get fed that day.
Yeah.
So you have greater strength that comes out in those horrible moments.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be able to take that problem and not bring it to work.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
that's where a lot of people have a hard time. So that's where those visuals, we're very ritualistic. If you think about the things we do, we have weddings and we exchange rings. And, those things are more than just a ritual. They have a great amount of emotional meaning to the people who are doing them and the people watching them.
Yeah.
Funerals, same thing. There's a great deal of being able to let go when you enter
Yeah.
in that space and saying goodbye and all those other things. It helps you close. So all of those things, we are very much the same. So if you can create a visual that can help you live your day through a horrible experience, do it. It might not be
Yeah.
mine. It might not be put it in a suitcase. I wanted to contain it in my mind and I wanted to leave it in the car. I couldn't leave it at home because that's where the kids were. So I
Yeah.
had to bring it with me, put it in the car, and then just leave it there. And that helped me survive literally a 70-hour week. I don't even remember how many hours it was. It was crazy. Um, in the middle of just having your whole world blow up.
Yeah.
Um, just take a moment for a slight interruption. We wanted to share some exciting news.
Exceptional women professionals often struggle to communicate their expertise. Rediscover, refine, rebrand women's retreats provide a transformative, intimate experience that help clarify your unique identity. So you are self-confident and courageous, stand out in your industry, and enjoy effective marketing.
Join us on one of these retreats. Go to arielfaith.com and choose your date that fits your schedule. Reserve your exclusive spot with a simple deposit, and then enjoy tailored planning tips and details from us to get ready for this inspiring experience. In the meantime, if you can like, share, and comment on this podcast, we'd appreciate the love. Thank you. So, experiences like that can teach us because I either rose to that or I crashed to that.
Mm-hmm.
And that one job actually fed my family for 3 months
Wow.
and took care of all the bills. I mean, so it
Yeah.
was like it gave me the ability literally to then feel what I had to feel on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So once I picked that suitcase up at the end of that week, it was mine. I had to handle it.
Yeah.
So
Wow, that's powerful. So that's a high level of self-awareness, and that's being able to self-manage as well. So those are the two tenets of emotional intelligence that you're talking about there. It's that recognizing that you can't walk into that building with that baggage with you, but that you have to park it and compartmentalize it. So that's your self-awareness. And then self-managing is being able to put it in that box and being able to leave it behind for a minute and just focus on what you need to
be
focus on
present.
that day and be present.
Yep. In that moment, I was
Absolutely.
at work. When I got in the car, I had my problem again. So
Yes.
it's about being able to reframe those things in your mind in a way that help you function,
Yeah.
that help you not react. Did I react perfectly throughout the day? No,
No.
but I definitely did a good job, and they had me come back later. You know what I mean? They actually hired me a year later. So what does that mean?
Well, you can't have been that bad, can
And
you?
no
'Cause they
one
invited you
knew.
back. No,
No
no
one
one
knew
knew.
that that was happening in my life.
Yeah.
I didn't need to bring it and tell them. They didn't need to know. Because at that point in life, I'm very much if I'm in the middle of a crisis and I'm, it's in, even people coming up and hugging me might not be the right thing because I have to be in this is self-awareness. You understand that there are certain things in life that you have to kind of deal with yourself before you're ready to deal with the people because
Hmm.
now you're dealing with your emotions and their emotions.
And their emotions. That's the thing, isn't it? And that's why
Yes.
it's so complicated and why it's so difficult and why sometimes we get it so wrong is because it's not all about you. And that's where the other parts of emotional intelligence come in. Once you've grasped self-awareness and self-management, you've then got to recognize that it's not all about you and that there are other people in the room. So that's social awareness of recognizing that someone else may have walked into the room having left their suitcase in the car and that they're not going to react perfectly either. So reading them and recognizing that, and a lot of it is also about different personality traits as well. I know there's a million out there that you can take different personality tests to work out what kind of a person you are, and then
Your
but the most
tendencies, yeah.
yeah. Whether you're a red person or a yellow person, or whether you're an introvert or an extrovert or a dominant or whatever it happens to be. So there's millions of those out there that you can do. But also in a team situation, the most important thing is not only recognizing who you are and how you react and how you manage things, but actually what do the rest of the team do as well? And the skill of a really good recruiter is being able to recruit people who make up a team. So you've got a balance of dominant introverts, extroverts, and introverts, and you know, calm people and excited people, starters and finishers, all those
Analytical
kind
and
of
the
things.
creative, depending on the job, so you have a
Exactly.
lot of different perspectives looking at the same thing. And
Yeah. And the final thing about emotional intelligence is being able to you could describe it as manipulate, but it's not. It's about relationship management. It's about knowing, understanding other people. And I remember my husband saying to me once that my husband's a dominant extrovert like I am. I mean, in a relationship, there's two of us. Wow, how does that work? But we both. And in fact, he always when people say to him, you're you're quite a dominant extrovert, and he says, you should meet my wife. So, I'm the quiet one. You should meet Miriam. So yeah, that's a bit of well, I can't remember why I was going to say this. Oh yeah, he says so. So in a management environment, he'll come up with ideas and he'll run with them. And he will walk into a meeting and someone asks him a question. How are we going to manage this? He will give them an answer. It might not be the right answer. Often it is, but it might not be. But he will give an answer there and then that he's developed in his mind as he's going along, and he will give that answer. He's got people on his team that he has learned to recognize that if he asks them a question and puts them on the spot, they are not going to answer in that meeting. That they need for themselves time to go away, analyze all the data, come up with the perfect solution, and then present it. And if you insist on that person coming up with an answer there and then, that person is going to crack, because for them, that isn't how they operate. They need that time to process. They need that time to come up with the answer. So over the years of management and leadership, he has come to understand who those people are and how they act. And so he'll ask them the question, and then he'll say, come back to me this afternoon and let me know what you've come up with. So it's a whole different way of managing. But he used to get really frustrated, in his early days, he used to get really frustrated with people that they didn't come back to him the way that he would come back to a manager, because of his, dominant extrovertness. But they needed that time. So that's about managing. That's about that's understanding other people and how they need to act. And I think that's a really good skill to learn. If only we learned that at school, if only we learned that when we were in our early 20s.
Yes, I
Easier,
agree.
wouldn't it?
There's a book, and I don't know if you've read it yet, but I told you about it and you had not heard of it, but it's a very popular American book, but the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes.
And he had a series of all kinds of highly effective managers. There was a whole series, and there was a kids series, and there was all kinds of books, but it had 7 basic principles that people, when they live by these, they are effective people. They are effective leaders. And some of these skills can be learned, and some of them could be natural. But one of them is the first one, which is seek to understand before being understood. So when you approach a problem or a team or a group of people with that mindset, where I'm going to understand first, then respond. So if I don't understand, I will ask more. I will get more data. I will allow more time to then be understood.
I like that. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. That's
Yes.
something to learn, isn't it? It's to not go into a situation thinking that you know everything, even if you are the expert going in, because you can always learn something, but actually approach it differently. Approach it with the kind of, I'm curious, how do other people see this situation? How do people see this problem? Because they might have a completely different perspective. And that's a growth mindset again, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You have to be able to say to yourself, it's okay that I don't know everything. I don't need to pretend I know everything. Because that's the beauty of people. What I don't know, you might know. So if I am okay with not knowing and I ask you and you share, we have now both grown. And that's the beauty of a team, is that as a team, when you start to pull out the good things and recognizing even what motivates one person versus another, and that sometimes the motivation is they need to be told you did a great job every 5 minutes. And that can be exhausting. And that might be an internal problem that person has, they have to solve, because they have to have that external validation, right? Versus the internal. And then there might be somebody who is very motivated by bonuses or that competition you put in your team and who's going to win. And some people are not motivated by that, and some people are. So you have to know your team, know the people that you work with, and really take the time to think about how you can use that knowledge to build. How can we become better because of it? Not necessarily, and who you can help coach along the way. Some people are coachable.
Yeah, some people are not.
Some people are not.
Talk to me about solopreneurs, because we've now talked a couple of times about teams. So what about solopreneurs? How can we use emotional intelligence to increase sales?
Increase sales. That's a good question. Actually, I was just talking to somebody about this today. Using the story brand marketing framework It's all about emotional intelligence. It really is. It's
Mhm.
about understanding who your client is, what they want, what they need, what their problems are, what their internal, external, all of the factors that might be involved for them to want to make a decision. So it's understanding the psychology behind who's buying and why. And why did they buy versus why did they not buy? How many seconds do I have on a web page to get their attention?
3.
3. And if I don't tell them who, a certain amount of data, who, what, and how, they're on to the next website. So if you know that, you can then use your marketing with more strategy, with more precision. You will hit your target much more stronger when you use some of those emotional intelligent things in your marketing, which marketing is the curiosity, the introduce, the get to know me part. Sales is the close. Once you build that value in whatever service you help solve, whatever problem you solve, once you build that through education, through whatever your marketing strategy is, through nurturing, through some of those things, then they're going to come when they're ready to buy. They're not
Mhm.
going to buy until they're ready to buy. That's the bottom line. And if it's a high ticket investment or something that costs, more than $1,000, then they're going to need more nurturing.
Yeah.
If you know that, you're going to put the energy into the marketing to nurture.
Yeah. And that's about it's about the funnel, isn't it? It's about the
Yes.
sales funnel. It's about recognizing that most people are not going to buy on their first interaction with you, but it's going to take a bit of warming up. That you need to build the relationship. So that's part of emotional intelligence, is about relationship management. So you're kind of building the anticipation through your communication with
Curiosity.
them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, introducing and then slowly giving them a little bit more information about who you are and what problem you solve and how you solve it. And then they'll eventually, if they're in the market to buy, and let's be honest, 90%, 97, I think it's 97% of people that you meet along the way are going to fall out of your funnel. They're going to be filtered out. They're not part of your journey. But those 3% have got to get to the bottom before they'll buy. So it's all about understanding who they are in the first place, understanding what their problem is and all those kind of things, and talking them through that process. So at the end, sales are in an inevitability. So
And some will have, all of us walk on a different journey, but some people might have been struggling with something for 20 years or 10 years or 5 years. And they've been looking for the answer. And all of a sudden you present it. So they're going to act quicker,
yeah.
but they're more rare because they
Mm.
are the ones that are doing the self-awareness. They have done the analysis in their business and they know what they need. They know what they don't have in house. So they're doing all that inside work to know what they need to pull in where they don't have it in house, right? So there are different people at a different stage that you're nurturing in that sequence. But even knowing that means you have to address in your marketing, you have to address what if somebody is going to come quick? How do I get,
Yeah.
how did, instead, they don't want to read to the bottom to get the answer. If you don't have call to action buttons in the middle, when they're quick, if they have to scroll 10 times to get to the
Mm.
buy button, they may not get there because they knew
Good
what they
point.
wanted and they could have done it right away on the first, quite literally within 2 seconds, they could have figured it out that they wanted to do it. So, or at least have a conversation with you to learn more, right? Whereas other people need that nurturing. Other people, because of where they are, they kind of know they need it, but they're not sure. Will I get a return? They have too many questions. Will I get a return from my investment? It's a lot of money. They have all these things, and they don't ask the question, what if I don't?
Yeah.
They don't, but we need to.
We need to prompt them with that question, don't we? Kind of,
Exactly. That needs to be a part of our marketing
if it was
because
easy, you'd have done it before. If you didn't need a coach, then you'd have got there, before. If you
And
didn't need good visuals or a good message, you'd have achieved what you wanted to achieve before now. So you do need this. This is what you need. There's a challenge that you're actually in some of your marketing, or perhaps a lot of your marketing, you're talking to both audiences. You're talking to those that are already warmed up, ready to buy right now, but you're also talking to that person that isn't quite ready, but may well be in the future. And it's trying to get that balance of that message right, isn't it? Through all of your marketing, meeting everyone exactly where they are. I don't think you're ever going to get it totally right.
I mean, I think having different marketing campaigns is a way to do that.
Yeah.
That address different problems,
Uh-huh.
which, if you think of any business, there isn't one problem they solve unless it's a restaurant, which is hunger. But, you know, that's the problem they solve. I'm hungry, I want to eat, right? That's pretty simple. But I might have a dietary restriction, so I can't go to this restaurant or that. So their marketing, so there might be nuances, or maybe I want Italian versus Mexican, or I want to go to Thai, which is preference, not necessarily need.
Yeah.
So the world of marketing, when the clearer you are about your clients and the needs that they have, the problems they have, where they want to be in their life, what is their aspirational identity, the clearer that is in your own mind when you're serving your clients or introducing yourself to future clients, the more you're going to be able to hear the objections before they even happen. And you'll know that I need to put this person in this sequence.
Yeah.
Track A or whatever, which is basically learning. It's all about the obstacles, because that person, everything I said, they had a but. So that sequence would get them to see the value of this, right? Whereas another person sees the value but isn't sure about the financial part of it. Well, that might be another marketing channel or funnel. I don't think you can create one funnel for all people.
No, I think you're right.
And if you have a multiple offerings of products, you really have to create different ones for those products, because they solve different problems. But and that's actually what makes it really neat, is now I have tons of marketing material.
Yeah.
I'm not going to run out of ideas.
But again, so it all comes down to knowing your audience, doesn't it? It's knowing your customer, knowing exactly where they are on their buying cycle, and what problem it is that you're solving, how you're going to, and all that kind of stuff. Good. Okay. So tell me, what connection have you observed between a woman's emotional intelligence and her ability to build an authentic personal brand that resonates with her ideal clients? Have we done that one? Have we covered that question?
Sort of, but not directly. And I think a direct answer would be good for that question. So repeat the question, because it's kind of a deep one, and I think it's worth repeating.
Okay, so what connection have you observed between a woman's emotional intelligence and her ability to build an authentic personal brand that resonates with her ideal clients?
So from what I have experienced, the more emotionally intelligent a woman is, the less fear she has about doing all those other things.
Okay.
Because she has already come to know herself and love herself. Because that's part of emotional intelligence, is accepting the flaws and the good things.
Yeah. And it's having the confidence as well, though, isn't it?
Which to me, emotional intelligence comes with, to me, those two are connected. I don't think you can be emotionally intelligent and not have confidence.
I think they certainly are totally tied together. I think the more emotionally intelligent you are, probably the more confident you are too. If you're not emotionally intelligent, are you not confident? I think it's possible to be confident without emotional intelligence. I think you're brash and you're kind of overly.
Okay, but what about the other? Can you be confident without being emotionally intelligent?
Yes.
Oh, if you're brash.
I
Yeah, you
think
could be right.
I think you can be, but
But are
maybe
they
you're
but
not
are they
social
really
aware.
emotionally
Maybe they're not.
intelligent?
No, maybe not. Maybe not. No, maybe not. Um,
I think you can be assertive, which is that's actually what part of being emotionally intelligent is, being assertive rather than being aggressive or passive aggressive.
and that's about reading the room as well, though, isn't it? And
Yes.
that's
Yep.
being. It's about being self-aware. It's
Yes.
knowing what you want to achieve. It's being able to communicate that in such a way that you are going to get the reaction from the other person that you want. And that's the assertiveness. And there's a confidence involved with assertiveness as well, because it's that recognizing that it's okay for me to ask for that. It's okay for me to not want to do that. All of those things it's okay for me to be feeling like this. And I'm going to tell you that that's how I'm feeling, but in a way that's not going to rub you up the wrong way. And it's not going to get anger thrown back at me. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to leave you in no uncertain terms that, no, I'm not going to do that. Or, no, that doesn't sit well with how I'm feeling or what my reaction is. And that's assertiveness. Do you know what, Ariel? I really think there's Nicole F. Smith. She's written some really good books on this, and I think she'd be really good to have as a guest
I
on
think so
our
too.
podcast. So I'd really like to invite her, because she's got some really good ideas about how you can phrase things in a very assertive way and come across in a really so you put yourself in a really good place. And some of that is about the way that you approach it, kind of like, I really like that idea, but, and she does it as a kind of sandwich. But I think, yeah. So look out for her in previous in future episodes of You Matter in Business, because I think we'd really like to invite her along to talk to us about it.
And I think we're going to talk to her at least 2 weeks because we have, a discussion. She's also talks a lot about leadership and in how that plays a part. Emotional intelligence plays a part in her leadership. So she's going to share that with us too.
That's fantastic. Because as we've talked about, leadership having emotional intelligence in leadership is essential. It's essential. But there's also, I mean, there's as I said at the beginning, there's a wealth of information out there about emotional intelligence. If anyone wants to understand what their own emotional levels of emotional intelligence, there's a book that was written by Dr. Travis Bradbury and Dr. Jean Greaves, and it's called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And actually, if you buy the book, you get an assessment that's free. Obviously, you've got to pay for the book in the first place, but it's not very expensive. But you can go online, and it then gives you an assessment of your own levels of emotional intelligence. And it also, if you score badly on, relationship management or self-awareness or whichever it is that you're less strong on, it gives you tips on how you can improve your emotional intelligence. And the book actually does the same, that once you've done the assessment, it then goes through different things, that if you're not very good at self-awareness, this is things that you can do to work on to make it, to improve. So I recommend that book. It's not very big, it's very little, but it's
You
really
you
good book.
just said something that was extremely important.
I said something intelligent.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh, thanks.
The point of an assessment is to know where you're strong and where you're weak.
Uh-huh.
You know where you're weak, then you can make a plan to improve it.
Yeah.
So it's not about evaluating you and putting you in a category and keeping you stuck there. It's about helping you cross the journey, cross the bridge. Because if you're on the other side and you know you have problems, but you can't figure out what they are, working with a coach, getting an assessment, all those tools that are out there, they help you see how to get across that bridge and which bridge do you want to go across, which is the most important for you at this moment. Tomorrow we can cross the other bridge, but today, what do we need to do to get you to that other bridge? That's actually pretty deep stuff there. It's
Yeah.
pretty emotionally intelligent, if you ask me. I always have
Well, that
to
was good.
throw in some humor, but anyway, I thought that was a really good point.
Well, I think I thoroughly enjoyed this discussion about emotional intelligence. It's something that I could talk about forever, and I think yeah, it's really good for us all to understand where we are on that scale and how we can improve. So that's
And
really good.
people are fascinating, you know. Take the journey, take the time to learn.
Yeah, take a breath.
Take a breath.
Love that.
The power of a pause. Is that it?
Power of the pause. Power of the pause.
Power of the
Awesome.
pause.
Thanks, Ariel. That was great.
Yeah. Thank you, Miriam.
I can't remember what's next week. Can you remember what's next week?
Yeah, Nicole Smith.
Oh, it is. We're doing it next week. Awesome.
Yes.
Good. Oh,
now
wow.
we do have to remind our audience about there are retreats that still have a few spots left on the website. So those are retreats that talk about branding and building that brand and building the confidence to build that brand, and then the branding shoot that goes with that whole process. So working through some of these psychological things that we've been talking about the self-awareness, and that's a lot of the things that we talk about in the workshop. So if you haven't looked at it yet, just take a look, see the dates, see the places. Some of them aren't 100% definite in terms of the date and the time, because we want to allow for the best out of a group of 4 people. We want to make sure we're picking the best places and the best times for them during those. We kind of have a date, but if we have to adapt, we will adapt. But because remember, this is about you, not about us. So that's the whole point of the workshop, and that's the whole point of the retreat, is that we're going to help you get to this next level in literally a few days. Really make some major changes in how you perceive yourself, how you perceive your clients, and how you have understanding to then bring to your marketing, bring to your conversations, bring to those sales calls that we all may not like. That's what our retreats are all about, is getting you to a place where you can really jump to the next level in your business.
Yeah, they're going to be
That's my
exciting.
10-minute commercial.
Well done. I like that one. But don't forget, though, we've also got our free workshop on the each quarter.
Each quarter. Yeah. And that's the first
Tuesday of each quarter. Yeah.
Of each quarter. Yeah.
That's
right.
And
that is also on the website. Register if you want to come. It's free. I also have one coming up, although this episode will be way over by then, or it will be over by then. But I'm doing workshops to help people with the story branding. Just understand the framework and how they can implement it. And so that's coming down the pike. It's already on my website if you want to check it out.
Awesome.
There's a free webinar, and I will have those continuous throughout the year. But anyway, so there will be one. I just don't know the date right this minute.
Lots of exciting things coming up then, Ariel. Yes. Well done.
Fantastic. All these things to help women succeed in business.
Who'd have thought?
Because
you matter in business.
See you next episode. After all, it is your brand, your story, and your success, because Ariel and I know you matter in your business.
Thank you for listening to the You Matter in Business podcast. Please follow, share, like, and comment. We would love to hear from you. This podcast is sponsored by Ariel Faith Photography and Enrich Life Coaching. The show notes provide more information on how to contact Ariel and Miriam and any guest speakers who share in our journey together.